Welcome back, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is in the news and has been in the news on and off for the last 300 plus years. And it's a topic that when I type it into certain search algorithms, tells me I am not authorized or they cannot meet my search requirements due to, my parameters aren't allowed. And that is white supremacy. Today we're going to talk about Sydney Sweeney, the jeans girl with a J, not a G, white supremacy and the history that we keep forgetting. You ever watch the news, or worse, you go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, something, right? Social media, and you think, wow, this is what we're mad about this week? A while back, the internet had very normal, very chill, totally proportional meltdown over Sydney Sweeney. It wasn't even that long ago. It was probably like 2 weeks ago. She was in a jeans commercial where it says, Sydney Sweeney has good jeans. It was a jeans commercial for the company American Eagle for their jeans. But because she looks like this, they decided that a lot of people decided that she was talking about because she's a white woman with blonde hair, blue eyes, and she looks a certain way. So her jeans with a G, not a J, make her better than everyone else. Where did that come from? No one knows. The outrage was extraordinary. And then, of course, she posted family photos from her birthday a while back. They were wearing cowboy hats. There was someone wear red, and people lost it. There was a shirt or two in the background with, political overtones. People are like, oh my God, she's a Nazi, or she's a white supremacist, or she's this, or she's this. And you hear things like, oh, she's a white supremacist, or her family's a white supremacist. Cue my brain. Oh, cool. We've solved the actual problem of white supremacy, and now we're just speed running through the credits. She's probably not a white supremacist. I can't tell you if she is 100%, but I'm pretty sure she's probably not, okay? So what does white supremacy actually mean? Here's the thing. White supremacy isn't just a synonym for people that don't like, who don't like other races or only like white people. Historically, it meant a capital S system. So white supremacy with a capital S, where laws, policies, and entire governments were designed to maintain white dominance over everyone else. And it wasn't subtle. It wasn't a t-shirt. It wasn't a play on words. Your cousin, you can't go online and say, oh, well, they were wearing a shirt that had an American flag on it, so they're a fascist. It wasn't that way. It was things like the Jim Crow laws that made sure Black Americans couldn't vote, or own property, or drink from the same water fountain. The Immigration Act of the 1920s that literally said, we prefer Northern Europeans. The rest of you can stay home. Immigration acts and rules like that from the 1900s, 1800s, and even today, those are what white supremacy or pro-American supremacy is. Things have changed dramatically since the 1920s. Native Americans were removed from their land and moved other places so the people in the 1800s could take their land and use it for themselves. The Native Americans lived here before us. Now, people lived there before them. But we said, the land's not yours anymore, it's ours. Pack up, move out, go away, we don't want you here anymore. In other words, white supremacy was like a giant HOA, like on steroids. It ran the country. Instead of charging late fees for your lawn being too tall or too many Christmas lights, it was dismantling the entire communities. If you really want to understand how bad it was, and still in some ways is, you have to look at some very un-Twitter friendly history. Let's look at Mississippi 1890. Mississippi rewrote its constitution specifically to stop Black people from voting. Poll taxes, literacy tests, interpret the random selection of the Constitution And shocker, white voters magically passed, black voters magically failed. This wasn't an accident, it was strategy. Think about this in today's world. If you had to go to the polls and before they allowed you to vote, you had to name 30 out of the last 50 presidents or 47 presidents. Could you do it? Now, I have some students that I taught in the past who probably could, but most of us couldn't. Or give us the preamble to the Constitution, or give us the Gettysburg Address with 80% efficiency, or tell us about a state law or state mandate that passed in 1947. Most of us couldn't do it. But that's what Mississippi did. When the slaves were freed in 1865 and so on, and the Juneteenth stuff and everything else passed, under the Constitution, they should have been allowed to vote just like everyone else, well, except for women, but that was later on. But they weren't. They were given certain things they had to do, certain hoops they had to jump through just to show that they were good enough to vote. And most of the time, they couldn't do it, at least not in Mississippi. Fast forward 30 years, Tulsa. The Greenwood District, aka Black Wall Street, was thriving. Families were growing, money was exchanging, businesses, theaters, banks, all black owned, all thriving, all doing great. Then a rumored assault, probably false, led to armed white mobs burning it to the ground, killing hundreds. This wasn't just violence, it was an economic eraser. They made up an attack to give them justification to burn a city to the ground. Now, George Floyd was attacked, was hurt, was killed by police. He was black, they were white. But what ensued was certain aspects of black businesses were burnt to the ground. White businesses were burnt to the ground. They were protesting police brutality by burning the city to the ground. That's not how you get your message across. Burning a city to the ground. When Rodney King was assaulted by police back in the 80s, and then the police were let go, they weren't even found guilty. Los Angeles burnt to the ground. Again, mostly black-owned businesses were burnt by the people protesting against white supremacy, were burning black businesses. We don't learn very well. And let's think about, even in our recent history, apartheid, South Africa. Okay, South Africa is a province of Britain, but they had apartheid, which basically blacks and whites were separate. They jailed somebody named Nelson Mandela, who was like our Martin Luther King. They jailed him for decades. They let him out. Apartheid ended. He became president. But sometimes Americans think white supremacy is just our thing. South Africa, again, British government, entire legal framework until the 1990s was designed to keep white people on top, and it looked eerily familiar to Jim Crow laws, like very similar. And the difference is in America, when we jailed people, it was for a shorter period of time. Nelson Mandela was in prison for decades, and no one seemed to care. So what is the difference between historical outrage, historical memories, and social media outrage? Today we have Twitter or X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and YouTube, and everything else, right? In 1860, they didn't have that. They had newspapers. And back then, the news was slow, methodical. You didn't always get everything, but you got enough. And here's the problem. With every celebrity scandal, some part of it could be white supremacists or Nazis or racism, or they're tone deaf to today's world. If we keep doing that, if we keep calling everybody a white supremacist, if we keep saying everything is racially motivated, if we keep calling out everybody for every small thing they've ever done in their life, the term starts to mean nothing. The fight, the battle, the struggle that went on for hundreds of years and still goes on today in certain parts of our country and the world that struggle loses its bite, its fierceness, because everybody is a white supremacist. I did a video on immigration and how basically my feelings on immigration are a little middle of the road, which I believe most Americans believe. But I got messages on both sides attacking me, telling me that I'm a racist, I don't like immigrants, to the other side saying, why don't I just let everybody in then and let them destroy our country? That's the problem with today's social media and the world we live in. Everybody believes once they get behind a keyboard or on their phone, they can say whatever they want with no thought. Let's use our minds, people. Not everybody who is white is a white supremacist. Not everybody who's black is dangerous and a thug. Not everyone from Iraq, Afghanistan, or the Arab regions are a terrorist. Not every Jewish person believes in bombing Gaza. Not every, the list can go on and on. Not every person from China wants to steal our jobs and become a communist. There are people who fled China for America because they don't want to be in that world. I've started to just group everyone together by what they look like or what they sound like or where they come from. Instead of judging a man by their character or a person by their character, we're judging them by what their last name is, where they've come from, what they look like. And everyone likes to quote Martin Luther King, okay? Troubled past, good man overall, but not exactly great history with some of his things. But he kept saying, I want my children, I want me, I want us to be judged by the character, by who we are, not what we look like. We've lost that completely. And it's because it's easier to use the catchphrase white supremacist or Nazi or fascist instead of just talking about what's going on in the world. For me, it's like every time if you stubbed your toe, you yelled, this is just like Pearl Harbor. Eventually people stop taking you seriously. And they also forget what Pearl Harbor was. Pearl Harbor was a disaster. Or this is our generation's 9/11. Or this is 9/11, this is our generation's Pearl Harbor. We have to keep all these historical events separate, combining them, making them similar, takes away from the power of what those events were. Jim Crow was a horrible thing. Civil War, slavery, horrible thing. The Trail of Tears with the Native Americans, horrible. Now, Americans thought they were doing the right thing. Some of them wanted to cause difficult times for the natives and for African Americans or blacks or other races, Italians, Poles, Irish. Depends on which decade you're in is who they hated the most. But most Americans weren't white supremacists. They were listening to their leaders and believing what the leaders said. So when we think about that, we have to think about where the general person is getting their information. Today we get more news from TikTok and Spotify and YouTube than we do from our local news people. And that's probably not great because TikTok stars aren't in our communities. They don't know what's going on. They read a headline and they go crazy with it, and all of a sudden it's news even if it isn't. Social media is a sprint. History is a marathon. We'll spend 72 hours debating whether a celebrity should have posted those party pics. But we'll spend 0 hours in school learning that the federal government actively endorsed housing segregation in our time. Most of us, 50% of this country lived in a time where the government redlined or made certain ethnic groups live in one part of the town and the whites live in another. We forget that. We think about Justin Trudeau with blackface, or we think of, Ted Danson with blackface when he was dating Whoopi Goldberg, or we're talking about Sydney Sweeney in her jeans, Or, Donald Trump hating immigrants, but he's married to an immigrant. Um, Maybe he does. I don't know what he loves or hates. I think he doesn't know half the time. It's not about that, guys. It's a nuance. Every day we go through the world, we need to understand that the person we're talking to or talking about or talking with, they have a different perspective on life than we do. Just calling somebody out because they don't look the right way, or they're not saying the right words the right way, or they're promoting a brand that you don't agree with. Scarlett Johansson got in trouble years ago because she promoted SodaStream, which is an Israeli company, and she was, for genocide and everything else. Gail Gadot has been blacklisted because she's a Jewish actress. Now, not a great actress. She did the first Wonder Woman good, but the point is, you shouldn't judge somebody from what country they came from or what religion they go for. You should judge them for what they do, how they act. Do they help the community? Do they help other people? And let the judgment fall upon God and the history. A lot of Germans probably thought Hitler was doing the right thing and trying to take care of themselves. After it was all said and done, a lot of them didn't like Hitler because they didn't realize what he was doing fully. You go to Italy, there's certain people who supported Mussolini, and then they found out what Mussolini was doing, and they're like, they spit. They say, no, he's a horrible human being. He should never have existed. We hate this fact. Someone replying to me now saying, so you say racism doesn't exist, white supremacy doesn't exist. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying every time someone speaks up, be white or black, Native American, Asian, European, African, anything in between, they're not saying they're better than everyone else. Most of the time, they're just saying, this is my world. This is what I experience. And this is how I deal with it. I can't tell you how somebody in South Sudan deals with things every day. I can tell you how I deal with things every day. That doesn't mean I'm saying I'm better than the person from South Sudan. What it's saying is, this is how I deal with things every day. And you can follow and enjoy, or you can say, you're an idiot, go away. So how do we stop this? How do we become accountable? What real accountability looks like in our world of hashtags and TikToks and Twitter and all this other things, social media outrage. We actually cared about dismantling white supremacy. We fix housing policies, end zoning laws that keep communities segregated, fund education properly so kids in historically redlined neighborhoods have the same resources as everyone else. Okay. Education is simple. Give the schools the money, pay the teachers, fund the schools. The administrators are where the money's being wasted. Stop wasting it on administrators, waste it on the teachers. Teach history fully. When I was a teacher of history, I would have sometimes the administration or principals would come up to me and say, how are you going to teach this? Because I don't know if this is going to be the proper way of teaching this. I actually taught at a public high school, and the school did not like how I taught about ancient Egypt and Greece and how Cleopatra was not Egyptian, she was Greek, and the pregnancy with Alexander the Great and the whole shebang. And because by telling the students that she wasn't really Egyptian, I was demeaning the Egyptian people. It's history, guys. I can't change it. I can either tell you what actually happened or I can lie to you. But if I lie to you when you get older, you're going to fight and be one of these people who are uneducated saying, well, I remember in 9th grade, my history teacher told me. Well, no. I don't want to be the history teacher that told you fake history. Have I learned things over the past that were wrong later on in life? Yes. Like I was taught in the 80s that everyone on the Challenger shuttle, when they exploded, they all died right away. Come to find out they didn't. I've learned historical events that have happened that didn't happen the way they told us for decades. And then magically, when it's, files got unsealed, we find out different history. History changes. But when it changes, we teach what's real. We teach what we can prove or what that has been documented with as much fact as possible. Everyone was basically nice after the Civil Rights Act version of history is not the right history. Saying everyone loved the Civil Rights Act, everyone just held hands and sang Kumbaya around the world. That's not how it happened. People hated it still. There was bombings, there was riots, there was hosing of people, there was burning of buildings and crosses and everything else. Instead of teaching that form of history, instead of chasing after celebrities like they're the final boss on a video game, and once you beat them down, you've defeated racism, realize they're not. The system is. And the system doesn't care if Sydney Sweeney posts an apology video on Instagram, or if she says, hey, I said jeans with a J, not jeans with a G. No one cares historically. Historically, that event is going to be gone. But we're making it all the rage right now. White supremacy, historically, was the water the country swam in. Our country, a lot of countries. And for a lot of people, it still is. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a hashtag. It was the law. It was a law. And that law, people followed because they thought that's what they should do. By all means, call things out when there's a problem. If you see someone saying something or doing something completely wrong, blatantly wrong, call it out. But don't confuse a bad photo app or a play on words as a full weight attack on historical, systems. And don't think Sydney Sweeney is coming after, going to go and join the KKK because she has good genes. KKK, bad place, bad people. Most people there are not great people, okay? They were formed under a century-long system that encouraged them. It was like being part of the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or anything else. Being part of not AA, but AAA or AARP. It was just something you did. And not everybody in there believed that they were better. But not everybody was violent. Not everybody was horrible. Instead, they were doing what their dad did, what their grandpa did. And a lot of members quit or left after they joined, just like Scientology, just like Mormons, just like Jehovah's Witnesses, just like other cults. People leave when they realize what's actually going on. But they were part of it at one time. Don't judge people for what they did in the past. Judge what they're doing today. Because in 1890, the Mississippi State Legislature didn't need to scroll through Instagram to decide whether or not people deserved rights. They already knew their answer. And their answer was, no, you don't look right. And it took 2 world wars, the Korean War, an assassination of a president, a couple assassinations of civil rights leaders, bombings, burnings, people being hosed in the street, tear gas, living, dying, just overall exhaustion of a people for us to get where we are today. While we're not perfect, not everyone in our country is a racist. Not everyone in our country is a white supremacist. Not everyone that you know who makes a funny joke or wears an America First t-shirt or America t-shirt or wears a red hat, or wears the wrong tie. They're not white supremacists. They're people just like you, just like me. And They're living their life. And every day they do their best for themselves, for their families. They live their life with faith, with honor, with integrity. There are some bad people out there, but not everyone is bad, because if everyone is bad, then you're bad too. Because being a white supremacist, being a racist, being anti-white, anti-black, anti-Asian, anti-everything, if everyone is that, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Thank you all for watching. Till next time.